Welcome to She Chose Joy with Melanie, where we discuss all things love, freedom, wellness, and joy. I'm your host, Melanie Foote-Davis, also known as the Soul Whisperer. Have you ever paused to consider what healing means for you? Well, I have, so I invited Nadine Hottat to share ways to deeply nourish our minds, bodies, and spirit. Grab some water, a notebook, and prepare to be enlightened. Let's get into it. Well, hello. Welcome, Nadine.
Hello, Melanie. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
I feel very welcome.
welcome to She Chose Joy. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you had to share today. This is a topic that I am super interested in as because today we're going to be talking about feminine medicine. We're going to be talking about integrative medicine and just having a better understanding of what that really means. And one of the reasons I'm drawn to it is because I am not one who I believe in getting to the root cause of something and approaching things from that place versus just putting a band-aid on it or treating a symptom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested in the healing aspect of life than it is to minimize the symptom, the pain, the what have you, and you still have the situation. So I'm like super thrilled to dive into this conversation with you today.
Good. Thank you. I am too.
Mm-hmm. So first, let's just give the listeners some context to work with. So you are an advanced practice registered nurse. You're also a certified nurse midwife. Um,
Yes.
and you practice using integrative medicine.
Yes.
And do you work specifically with women?
The vast majority of my practice is with women, though I do have a small angle on it where I have done some work with men around
Okay.
botanical medicine. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So let's start with first talking about um, your journey. Like, how did you get from, like, what was the transition from being in an advanced practice nurse, right, to moving into a more holistic approach in integrating the two?
Yeah. Well, in truth, my journey as a healthcare person has really started with holistic healing before I even got into clinical medicine. So that's always been the heart and the foundation of what I've been doing and what my passion has been about. Um, so I was a nurse for about um, 20 years before I went back and got, so I was an RN for 20 years before I went back to graduate school and did my master's level nurse midwifery training. So I worked as a nurse in a lot of different settings.
Mm-hmm.
And so both in my, it was kind of like this grand tour of nursing. I just did a lot of different things and saw, I did psychiatric nursing, I did school nursing, I worked in businesses, I worked in a hospital, I worked in a doctor's office who was kind of a holistic doctor. for many years I worked with her as a nurse. So I just saw a lot of different things
Mm-hmm.
in my nursing career. And but women's health and, like you described, healing was always my passion and my interest. And I
Mm-hmm.
always felt in all my clinical experience that there was a broader field of what people really were looking for. Though they might have come,
Mm-hmm.
they might come for their lab work or their prescriptions or their diagnostics or whatever happens in doctors' offices and hospitals. But that's not all there is to medicine. Medicine is an art and a science, and the great, medical people, through the centuries have spoken of the art of medicine. And so I just really felt that was very true. And I felt, um, particularly in my work in women's health, I always had an interest in women's health and healing. So not just clinical
Mm-hmm.
health, but really what's happening with our emotions, what's happening with our mind, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening with our spirit, and how does that interact with what's happening with our bodies? How are these all woven together? And recognizing very often, I could just see it and witness it, that women would come in for a doctor's appointment or whatever, and talk about their migraine headaches, or talk about their digestive problems, or talk about their,
Mm-hmm.
painful menstrual symptoms, or, whatever, their muscle aches or their fatigue or whatever was going on. And, we draw their blood and we send them for this, ultrasound or that MRI or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and get so-called diagnoses, and give them their prescription or their procedure or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and send them along their way. And um, it just was evident to me that that's just one facet of what's really
Mm-hmm.
happening for them. And what is really being expressed in this woman's body mind, and where, like you said, what are the root causes, and where's healing going to take place? So that was just always with me. And then when I
Mm-hmm.
went back and got my graduate degree and became licensed as an advanced practice nurse, um, then I was able to step into a more, higher level clinical role, a primary care, in a sense. Your nurse practitioners are considered primary care providers. And I started to work in different settings, focusing on women's health in that role. And it became even more evident to me that this is not my path, to be in these settings where you have, 10-minute doctor appointments, and you've got 25 people scheduled, and you've got, clickety clack insurance knocking on your door. And, I just felt
Right.
much more interested in an approach that really lets us explore many angles on what's happening and what somebody needs and what are her intentions for healing. So I really just pretty quickly developed my own practice, and I've had my own practice since 2012,
Mm.
and it's gone through some iterations, but it's my practice is called Enlighten Health Care. And I like to use the word enlighten because that's what I really feel like healthcare needs. It needs
Mm-hmm.
enlightened thought, enlightened inspiration, um, and so that's my work. And I now can, just in my own terms, really meet women where they are, look at what their whole health history and goals are, and try to bring a broad range of approaches
Mm-hmm.
to each encounter.
I love that because it's really tending to the whole person. And since we're talking about women, tending to the whole woman, right? um not just the symptoms, and not just like, it's interesting that you said that 10-minute appointment with X amount of patients and all of those things, because that really is the, unfortunately, that's the experience too, that you're in
Yes.
and out. You wait for hours, sometimes depending on how it was, and then you're in and out in 10 or 15 minutes, and you still really don't know exactly what's going on, but you have this pill to take,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
this test to run, or this procedure to have. um but I don't have any statistics or anything like that. This is just me solely speaking from my own perspective or opinion. After all of those things, and in all honesty, I don't really see um healing.
Yeah.
I don't see people getting better per se after a lot of those things,
Yes.
which has always been one of those things that caused me to question, like, there's got to be more. There's got
Right.
to be more. There's got to be something else. Something about this doesn't feel completely like the whole truth, or the whole, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but something's missing. There seems to be a missing link, I guess.
Yes.
That would probably be more of it.
Yes, and that's very much what my feeling has was so much in my career in healthcare was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is important. It's not that this highly clinical and technical medicine is not important and effective when it's effective, but
Right.
um, I often felt like something's missing, and then we can see that because especially now in the last few decades with the growth of chronic illnesses,
Mm-hmm.
speaking of in in women's health, because that's my specialty, I can say that we're seeing just this incredible epidemic really of chronic conditions
Mm-hmm.
and autoimmune illnesses and mood problems and sleep problems. And,
Mm-hmm.
these are not things that conventional medicine is very good at dealing with.
Yeah.
There may be some pharmaceuticals that can deal with some of it, but like you just said, we don't see a lot of healing.
Mm-mm.
And so we really have to expand our understanding and our approach and how to, what brings healing, what
Mm-hmm.
brings healing. And even if somebody can't completely overcome a particular illness, how can they you can still heal. Healing doesn't always mean curing. Healing is a,
Right.
a, a process that's much more holistic. So, I just felt like in the conventional medical system, it's really good at certain things and it's not
Mm-hmm.
very good at other things. And we have to
Mm-hmm.
make space as healthcare providers to attend to this more holistic approach.
Yeah. 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 So when we think of it, when I see the word integrative, tell us a little bit more about what that means, like integrative
Yeah,
medicine. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So integrative medicine is a term that really refers to being able to expand the resources and the tools that we use in medicine, um, beyond what is conventionally taught in most medical schools. So, most medical schools training is you know disease focused,
Mm-hmm.
more disease focused than health focused. So really,
Mm-hmm.
identifying disease, understanding the pathology of disease, um, and the treatments are generally pharmaceutical approaches, surgical approaches, and procedures, and of course the whole field of diagnosing, being able to, use all the technology for diagnosing. And so, it's spectacular for what it can do. Integrative medicine recognizes that there are aspects of, it's like, more the art of medicine is part of it. Like, you, you can think of nutritional medicine as part of integrative medicine, but which, by the way, most medical schools, I know physicians that have graduated in recent years who have said in all their medical training they got about 3 hours of lecture on nutrition. So this
Wow.
is, this is real. This is really true. They don't learn about nutrition. They don't learn a lot about the body work, how all different forms of body work, massage, chiropractic, acupuncture. There are systems of medicine in other parts of the world, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine that comes from India,
Mm-hmm.
that are thousands of years old and continue to be um, really effective. And
Mm-hmm.
so, so integrative medicine says, let's look beyond the boundaries of our conventional Western medicine and see what we can bring to this particular person. Remember, we're not treating a disease, we're treating a person. Who is this
Mm-hmm.
person? And what resonates with this person? What kind of things is this person interested in? Maybe this person comes from a culture where they used herbs, or they used topicals, hydrotherapy in saunas, or stories, or dance, or this, what does this mean to this person? So integrative medicine just opens up the creates much more spaciousness and much more inclusion of lots of tools and resources.
Mm. Mm.
Right. And many of those things have scientific evidence behind them, so conventional medicine shouldn't be afraid to rally these tools. There's research there. We're not just taking a chance. We can
Mm-hmm.
use integrative medicine, can be evidence based and
Mm-hmm.
have science behind it, and that's the
Yeah.
wonderful thing, is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you are able to look at can I just say I just love when you said um I just got warm fuzzies when you said we're not treating a disease, we're treating a person.
Right.
Something about just hearing you say that um I actually feel emotional about it because so many times, especially as women, as a woman, and then even I'm going to dare to say as a Black woman, a woman of color, we don't necessarily feel seen, heard, or respected as a person um, when it comes to our health. There are many times that we are as women we're having symptoms, we're having something, and we're explaining what's happening and don't often feel heard, whether it's from the emotional aspect, whether it's a physical sensation, like however it shows up in our lives. There are many times that is this, it feels like a dismissive or cookie cutter approach to whatever the solution is, and then being tossed to the side.
Yes. Yes.
And I know of personal stories, or heard of, or or read about so many stories where we're saying what we're experiencing, and it's just being an assumption based on, and I'm going back to you saying like a 10-minute visit. Sometimes it's just based on what they see, right? And so they assume it's a weight thing, um or like think they assume it's a weight thing, so it has something to do with your your, what am I trying to say, that body fat index, or all of these other
BMI.
things. Yeah, the BMI.
Mhm.
So um a lot of assumptions are being made within that 10-minute too. So hearing you say you're treating a whole person, and it sounds like what you're saying, like the way I heard that, it means that you are actually asking questions and taking a deeper dive into getting to know who this person is, what's their story, what
Yes.
what's their lifestyle, like what's happening in their life, and all of these things, to take all parts of this woman into consideration as you
Yes.
treat. Is that,
Yeah.
did I mess that
Yes.
up? Look.
No, 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 far from it. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It is, a good doctor or a healthcare person will tell you that the health history is one of the most effective ways to understand what's going on with a person.
Mhm,
And by health history, it's not just, list all your surgeries and what year, and do you have, list all your this and that. It's hearing your experience of it. It's thinking about what was happening in your life when you started to feel that, you know.
mhm,
It's going back, it's being able to take the time to really explore the territory. And
mhm,
um so that it's not cookie cutter, like,
mhm,
two people can present to you with a similar profile of symptoms, or, and a diagnosis. And
mhm,
um but the, like, you used the word root causes earlier, but the where that illness or imbalance is coming from can be completely different. Two people could come with what might be diagnosed as major depressive disorder, for instance. And,
mhm,
for one person, the reasons behind that could be trauma and,
mhm,
stress response system, overload. For another person, that could be a thyroid problem,
mhm,
or for another person, they could be in depression because of food sensitivities that are causing, inflammation. So,
mhm,
okay, maybe each person is going to get an antidepressant, and that might be helpful for them in terms of, managing their life and
mhm,
perhaps feeling better, but that's not going to get rid of the problem. It
mhm,
doesn't heal it. And so you have to go kind of deep to to explore what might be those root causes. And beyond that, Melanie, and this is where really I get into what I call feminine medicine, and we can talk about that when we're ready. But, you know it's not only, let's see if we can explore what the root causes are, but let's see if we can explore what is healing for you,
mhm,
what brings you healing, what energies, how are you going to rally your healing energy, where is that going to come from? And
mhm,
that's very unique for each person as well. Like, they can walk out of the office with 3 prescriptions and, some appointments for whatever, but um how do they feel about that?
mhm,
you know how do you feel about these prescriptions? Or what are you going to do to really activate your own innate healing capacity? And
mhm,
this is the real beauty of true medicine work, is recognizing that all healing is self-healing. All
mhm,
healing is self-healing, and each self is that whole person that you're describing. Treat the person. How are we going to help this person um you know tap into their own healing energies?
mm. Okay, let's let's pause right there, because I definitely want to come back to that all healing is self-healing.
Hmm.
Um But let's pause for a moment just to speak to the feminine medicine piece.
Mhm.
When what does feminine medicine mean for you?
Okay, so it's there's a lot to it, and what I say to people as I am articulating feminine medicine is that to me, feminine medicine is a kind of like an artistic phrase more than a clinical phrase. And it's
Mhm.
interesting because I often tell people to Google two things. You know how you can do a Google image search? You Google
Mhm.
something and you press image. So I tell people to first Google image medicine,
Mhm.
and then Google image feminine medicine, and just see what you get. And I almost don't want to spoil it by saying what you get.
Okay,
But
I'm going to do it right now.
okay, do it right
So,
now. Do it
so
right now.
Google medicine, right?
Just Google image search medicine.
Google image. Okay.
What do you see?
Okay. Well, the first thing comes up is drug image search.
So
um,
if you just put in medicine and do image,
okay, I'm
you
gonna go. Okay, medicine, do image. Okay, I see pills.
you see pills.
Yeah.
Hundreds of pictures of pills,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So let's just start right there. Let's just start
Hmm.
right there. To me, this is an indication of what our cultural um, definition or
Hmm.
way of looking at what is medicine. It's
Hmm.
it's basically expressed in these pills. Now, if you look at the word medicine, well, if you look at the definition of the word medicine, and I can't actually repeat that off the top of my head, but the dictionary definition is, you know, that which pertains to healing and
Hmm.
alleviation of suffering and disease, right? But if you look at the definition of medicine from a Native American perspective,
Hmm.
or a tribe in Siberia, or
Hmm.
all over the world, the definition of medicine is not, that's not all there is to medicine.
Hmm.
And what has been brought to the field of medicine for thousands of years and around the globe, there's much more than pills. There's
Hmm.
much. So what does medicine even really mean? And then so this is consideration one. Let's really expand our concept of what is medicine and what can be
Hmm.
medicine.
Hmm.
And that's a whole process, really, to just reflect on that and to really think about what our experiences have been with medicine. What do we think of when we think of medicine? What have been our experiences with what we call medicine?
Hmm.
What is our emotional feeling towards medicine? What is our mental feeling towards medicine? And then let's really begin to think about, what about prayer? What about walking in nature? What about plants?
Hmm.
Healing herbs? What about relationships? What about creativity? What about sexuality? What about our animals? Like, are these experiences medicine? Are these, most people would tell you, these are actually the things that make me feel better. These are actually the things that make me feel like I'm healing, you know?
Hmm.
So what I want to say is, first of all, let's just really open up our understanding of what is medicine, and take that seriously. It's not
Hmm.
trivial. It's not like, Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The pills, the pharmaceuticals are the medicine, and yes, it's okay to have a little of this and that and a little of this, but
Mm,
I want to really say no, no, this is not true. Pharmaceuticals are one kind of medicine, and there are many, many kinds of medicine, and everybody deserves to be able to explore that territory and find what is really going to be what they choose. You know.
mm,
So that's step one. And then step
mm,
two is the term feminine, and I think that I've said to you previously, it was a long time coming for me to get comfortable with using this phrase, feminine
mhm,
medicine. Though I felt it in my heart and mind,
mhm,
I didn't really bring it forth professionally until really in the last year, where I began to just put it out there professionally. This is what I'm doing, this is why,
mhm.
and this is what this means to me. So with the word feminine, then we can kind of, and this is again, I mean, we could talk for hours on just,
Right.
that topic. What does the word feminine even mean? And
Mhm,
again, this is, to me, this is art. There's no science that tells you what feminine is. There's no, correct definition of what feminine is. And different, it's just a word, it's language to try to describe a certain dynamic or energy. Some people talk about feminine energy or feminine
mhm,
dynamic. And everybody has their own take on that, and different,
mhm.
philosophies have it, and different medical systems, medicine systems can talk about yin and yang, or there's a lot of different ways to approach this. But I'm just talking about mine and what I bring to my work. And and I can tell you that part of this really stems from my experience as a midwife and working with women in such a deep and intimate way as attending
Mhm,
birth, witnessing
mhm.
them give birth. Um, I feel like I have the privilege and honor to witness women tap into a very, very deep, deep place and
Yeah.
traverse very, very deep place. However they give birth, it doesn't matter
Mhm.
anything about natural birth, medicated birth, cesarean birth, it doesn't matter. She still is going into this incredibly profound experience and place and drawing from.
Okay, so we lost you for a moment. The last thing I heard you say was um, you were talking about women giving birth, and um, you made it clear that it didn't matter whether it was, with medicine, whether it was, a natural birth or not, but that the women go through an incredibly profound space drawing
Yes.
from, and that was the last thing I heard.
I think I was saying, they really draw from a very deep well within themselves,
Mm-hmm.
that is profound physically, right? No matter how you give birth, you go through this incredible, your body goes through this
Mm-hmm.
incredible experience, and mentally and emotionally and spiritually, there's just so much energy and so much depth that draw from. Nobody can do it for her. A midwife doesn't, or a doctor doesn't deliver the baby. The woman delivers the baby. You know, the the medical person is just there to support and catch and get involved if you need to get involved. But no matter how it is, it's the woman that delivers the baby. So anyway, in my experience in midwifery, I just developed a really, I would call it a reverence for the depth of the deep feminine, the depth of um, the well within women that they draw from. To It's not just birth, it's to navigate life, and there's all kinds of births and deaths in our in our life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really developed this kind of deep love and passion and kind of calling to support that depth and beauty that I feel in women. And um, so that's part of it. And then feminine, if you also look at the word feminine in the context of feminine and masculine dynamics, right? You know, this is just terminology. There's other ways to talk about this. There are other ways to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to just look at it through those words. What's feminine and masculine? And you know that this is not about gender. It's not about sexual orientation. It's, you know, it's, these are dynamics that are within all people, all human beings. We all
Mm-hmm.
have masculine and feminine energies,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
using this language. And just in short, you know, the masculine energy is looked at as sort of active, doing, strategic, logical. It's the part of us that is methodical and outward and you know, structured. Whereas the feminine aspect of us is the more inward, reflective, receptive, intuitive, feeling, compassionate, caring for the vulnerable. It's the realm of the body. It's the realm of home. It's the realm of creating space that is for for tending, you know, loved ones. These are feminine energies. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's overlap and there's lots of ways to look at it, but you know, I don't get too complicated with it. But
Mm-hmm.
what I bring to feminine medicine, where what I really use often when I describe it, is that I feel like feminine energy is about nourishment. It's about nourishing. So without nourishment, you know, things don't grow and flourish. And I really look at what is deep nourishment. How is it, how do we nourish the body? How do we nourish the mind? How do we nourish the emotions? How do we nourish the spirit? So that with these aspects of us are well nourished, we can draw from the healing energies that are within all those realms of our wholeness, you know? So it's about deep nourishment. It's about honoring our those qualities of mind body, of the connection between our mind and our bodies, of our emotions and our bodies, our spirits and our bodies. What is all that connection? What is all that territory? And how can we deeply tap into that field, that fertile
Mm-hmm.
of healing energy? So I like to just put those terms together to honor what feminine energies are, and to say that these feminine energies are medicine and are
Mm-hmm.
healing, and they have been basically neglected and trivialized and oppressed and, you know, um, almost banished from the medical landscape over the last century or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is why we see a lot of the problems that we see
Yeah.
in you know, I mean, it's the honoring of the feminine.
Mm. Thank you for like sharing more about that. I even feel like I'm more connected to it as I hear you share now than the first, few conversations that we have. I'm feeling myself beginning to even understand it even more, which is was a part of my desire. Is like, for having this conversation with you. And it's funny because the word that's coming up for me is I feel enlightened. And
Yeah,
thinking about
perfect.
yes.
That's
And
yes, yes.
so the name of your company is perfect because yeah, Yeah,
Right.
thank you for just explaining that. I'm just going to just say, yeah. And so with sharing all of that, and we're going back to where we left off earlier. So I'm going to pick up where you said that all healing is self healing.
Yes.
And I know like there are things about healing with food. I know Louise Hay has a book about the body healing itself, all of that. But what did you mean by that when you said
Well, it does mean lots of things,
that?
and I think the thing just to remember is that even if you take a pharmaceutical or you have surgery, the healing is still happening within your body has to respond. Your body has to take up those substances and deliver them where they need to go and repair itself. If you have surgery for something, it's still your body that has to restore itself. So I
Mm,
think that in our medical system, we are often too passive. We don't recognize that I need to heal myself. I
mm,
need to rally my healing capacity. No matter what pathway of medicine I choose, I still have to rally my own healing energies. Like nobody can do this for me. Nothing's
mm,
going to do it for me. No matter how many pharmaceuticals you take, you're still doing it yourself, right?
mhm,
And you have to reflect on it a little and consider it. And it just helps us remember to become active and to become engaged in our healing, rather than, okay, give me what I need, somebody,
mhm,
doctor, give me what I need so that fix me. um,
mhm.
it doesn't work that way.
Oh, okay, good. So I'm glad we're talking about this for sure now. And so with that, how much does your mind play a role in this in terms of, like you mentioned, active and passive? So could you speak to or give an example of each, like a passive, being a playing a passive role in your healing versus an active role? Because I'm a believer that the way you approach it, your mindset around it, um versus just giving into whatever you've been told about you, plays a role in how the recovery process. um but I'm not the
Yeah.
expert in that, so.
Well, there's a lot to that, and there's really a whole field of science now, that looks at this. The field of, there's various terms for it, but psychoneuroimmunology is one of the terms. That's all one word: psychoneuroimmunology, looking at the interaction of the mind, our thoughts, our imagery, and our nervous system and our immune system in that particular term. There are other ways of looking at it, but like, we're not compartmentalized. We don't have
Mhm.
these little compartments. That's not true at all. Like, we don't even have like a mind separate from our body. It's all one thing. It's all one thing. And that's a long discussion. But, to talk about passive versus active, there's lots of ways that can express itself. But what came to me when you asked that question was, say you have a medicine to take, a pharmaceutical to take, and you're taking your blood pressure medicine, then you
Mhm.
pop open your little pill bottle and take your blood pressure medicine while you're having your breakfast, and then go on to work. And
Mhm.
that medicine is going to go do what it does. Now, imagine if you stopped when you took that blood pressure medicine, and for a moment you said, thank you, science, for just, for developing a medicine that can help bring my blood pressure down and protect my heart health. And
Mhm.
may or you take that pill and say, may this go directly to its target and be effective. And this is a little example, but in that example, you just you describe just kind of taking the medicine. In fact, a lot of people take their medicine and think, oh, I hate taking my medicine, but I have to take my
Mhm.
medicine. I hate that I have to take this, but here I go, I swallow it down. Now contrast that with taking it with gratitude and consciousness of your intention. And
Mhm.
when you bring that gratitude and consciousness to your intention, you actually activate physiological response. You activate neurotransmitters and hormonal responses and immune system responses that are positive and beneficial.
Hmm.
So, so you engage your own healing energy with that little act of gratitude and expanded consciousness. You engage actual physiological responses that are going to help your process.
Phenomenal.
So that's a little, you can reflect on that little example and carry it to
Yes.
all kinds
Yes.
of places. But how can we be more engaged? How can we bring more consciousness, more recognition of our
Mm-hmm.
power,
Mm.
our to feel empowered, that active aspect of not being passive but being active in it is feeling empowered and knowing that you have the ability to heal your body, your mind, your emotions, your spiritual connection. Those are all healing resources, and you are the one who can tap into them as much as you want.
This is yummy. That's some good stuff right there.
Right. Yeah.
Mm. I
Yeah.
just want to have a whole conversation about that one piece right there.
I know.
And I'm going to practice saying the word psychoneuroimmunology. Did I say it right? Psychoneuroimmunology. That's a long word.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Psychoneuroimmunology. And so that is the way, that's a beautiful example of and I'm going to admit I'm surprised at the example because um I didn't expect you to integrate this active engaging participation with a pill, right?
Right.
So I
Right.
love that you did that.
Yeah.
It was surprising. It gave me a lot to really consider, and it comes from that place of this and that, not this or that.
Yes, Melanie, well said. And that's what integrative medicine is about.
Mm-hmm,
That's
mm-hmm.
integrative. We integrate, we bring them all together, we weave them together, and imagine what we can create.
Yes, yes, yes. So share that one more time. If you take the pill and walk us through it again, I just want to feel into it.
Yeah, well, you have the opportunity when you take your medication to pause for a moment and um, feel gratitude
Mm-hmm,
that this medication has been developed and has been found to be effective to treat
mm-hmm,
something that's important for your health and well-being, and that people have put energy into creating this medication, and that you have made a decision. You made a decision to use this prescription. You didn't have to. You made a decision. You agreed. Nobody's forcing you. You're taking
mm-hmm,
this prescription, and so take this prescription with rally your gratitude and your consciousness, and also that you can envision, you can use the power of your imagery to say, I'm going to envision this medication, benefiting my body and condition, and causing no harm, or without without causing harm.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just set your awareness. You can bring some awareness to that little moment, even if it's just
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a 5-second consciousness, a little prayer, a deep breath. And the point I'm making is that these little practices of awareness and mindfulness, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they are like synergistic. They will work
Mm-hmm.
synergistically with your medicine. They will enhance the effectiveness of your medicine. And there is science to affirm that. This isn't,
Mm-hmm.
theoretical. It's true.
And so this same approach, if you will, could also work as it relates to a procedure that someone is having,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
right? Okay. Um, and so now, can you give us an example of passive?
Well, passive might be, like I said, just popping the pill, popping the
Mm-hmm.
pill and moving on. And let me give you an example that's similar, that to take it out of, like, you're surprised that I was talking about a pill, but you know, I also work a lot with herbal medicine, or what I call
Mm-hmm.
botanical, with plants, as
Mm-hmm.
the medicinal properties of plants, and their role as therapeutic and medicinal. And
Mm-hmm.
the same thing can happen with a plant. Like, somebody can, maybe they have an herbal tincture that they're taking,
Mm-hmm.
things people are familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
echinacea, or, ashwagandha, or, different things that people use, um, from the plant world. And
Mm-hmm.
when I work with botanicals, I will encourage the same thing for somebody. Like, you can just take your tincture or drink your cup of tea, but what about if you really learn about that plant? You look at that plant, and um, penetrate into it a little bit, so that you have an awareness of how this plant works and what it's bringing to you. What if you express gratitude to that that plant, and bring this engagement to your use of this medicine? It's the same. You can bring that consciousness and mindfulness to anything. But I think passive is, there's a lot of ways you can envision
Mm-hmm.
being passive. People can go and get their prescription, and think that their prescription is going to heal them, but not engage in, like, the root causes that you said. Like, maybe these symptoms are coming from the fact that I'm eating inflammatory foods. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being active in nourishing myself properly,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Yes.
expecting this pill to heal me, but it's not going to heal me. That's kind of a passive
Mm-hmm. So
approach.
would that be, let me just simplify it a little bit. So for example, if I know that a specific food gives me indigestion, but I eat that food anyway, and then I just pop a pill for indigestion afterwards,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
not really being active in the healing. It's more or less being active in treating the symptom.
That's right. There's
Okay.
there's disease there's disease management, and there's, you know healing, and so,
Mhm.
yeah, I consider that sort of a passive, even though you did take your antacid. But,
But the
you
healing, you
still,
were passive in the healing aspect of it because you
right. And
continue to not feed your body what would nourish or nurture. Like I'm going back to thinking about when you were speaking to the nurturing and nourishing aspect
yes.
um, of healing, and choosing that is not necessarily um engaging in the nourishment aspect of it,
Yeah,
from my
yeah.
perspective. And so I'm open
Yes.
to you sharing something different, a different perspective. But yeah.
No, no, I think that's true. That's true. I think so. What I talk about and bring to my practice is, let's let's keep bringing ourselves back to what are these, what I call feminine
Mhm.
principles. What are feminine principles of healing? What are ways that we can bring those dynamics into our the pathway, your plan of care, your pathway of working with whatever your health intentions and goals are. And
Mhm.
there's so many ways to do that, Melanie. And I really um I really try to feel in being with a person
Mhm.
where they are, and find what resonates with them, and
Mhm.
we can explore different approaches and different conversations around what might help this person. For instance, the person with the
Mhm.
antacid, who's still eating all these inflammatory or triggering foods. Let's explore that territory in a loving,
Mhm.
um, non-judgmental way, and
Mhm.
see what we can do. And sometimes if you talk about nutrition in this clinical way, well, you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this and you
Mhm.
have to do that.
Right.
It's people can be it can bring up resistance and barriers and a feeling of
Mhm.
overwhelm. People are tired. They're tired. They're weary of what I have to do. I have to do more. I have to
Mhm.
do more. I have to do more. But instead, we might come to that and say, boy, I wonder how we could help you feel more nourished so that you
Mm.
wouldn't have these symptoms in your belly. I want, maybe your belly's expressing that it's not nourished in a way it needs to be. And, begin to like look at things in this loving kind of feminine dynamic rather than a
Mhm.
clinical, logical, masculine dynamic.
Mhm.
And that can, some people don't want to do it in this feminine way. They want to work logically. And again, like you said, it's not either or, it's both and. Let's
Mhm.
see what's missing. What's missing, like you said earlier. How can we
Mhm.
bring how can we explore what might be missing in your map of
Mhm.
healing and recovery, and bring that in.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Um, and you already know that I'm going to ask you about continuing this conversation.
Thank
Um,
you.
and and we'll talk afterwards too about you coming and sharing with the women in my network, in another way too, where they can actually ask questions and all of those different things to be able to support them further. But I am so grateful for what you've shared today. And this is definitely, there's so much more, so much more, so much
Yeah.
more that we couldn't possibly do this in an hour's conversation. But I
Yeah.
feel like what you shared today was a lot of wisdom, um, several different perspectives or ways to approach it in a different way. And I feel like this conversation, for those who hear it, or even just based on how I experienced it, and I know it'll be different when I hear it again and again, and the more I talk to you, I believe it's actually shifting, causing a shift energetically in the way we connect with our bodies, just
Yeah.
even from hearing it,
Yeah. Good. Yes.
you
Yes. And
know.
that connection for most of us
Mm-hmm.
needs healing. Needs healing.
Yeah.
It needs healing. And there are really beautiful, nurturing
Mm-hmm.
ways to do that. There are really. I talk about gardens a lot in my
Mm-hmm.
description of my work, Melanie, and maybe this will be a good way to end our conversation because I know our time. But when you're I just love the metaphor of growing, of gardening. If you're growing a tree, or a, a fruit tree, say that, um, when you can't, or a flower, you can't pull that flower to make it grow faster. You can't unfold the petals to make it grow faster. What you do is create the conditions. You nourish the soil from which that flower or tree is going to grow. Your job is to nourish the soil, and to try to protect it from anything that might be an obstacle to its flourishing. And to
Mm,
allow light to come in, and allow the rain or water to come in. These are the natural healing and growing forces of, so I feel like when feminine medicine is really helping to create these conditions for our healing to take place, and a lot of that does touch into befriending our bodies, befriending our minds and our emotions, our spiritual connections, helping to heal the rifts that our culture has imposed on us, and our and modern medicine has imposed on us. I mean, really, the history of women's healthcare, that's a whole nother topic. Like, we
mm-hmm,
really look at like what's gone on in women's healthcare. We realize that there's a lot that we need to reclaim.
mm-hmm,
There's a
mm-hmm.
lot that has been taken from us, and that we
Yeah,
need to reclaim. And those are,
yeah,
this is all very much part of our healing.
yeah. So true. A lot to reclaim. You're absolutely. I don't think you'll get any resistance on that statement at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not at
So it's a joyful
all.
time. And we're doing
Yeah.
it. We're doing it.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's what your work is here to help women reclaim. My work is here to help women reclaim.
Yeah.
And it's not women alone.
Yeah. And this whole like reclaiming it and restoring
Yeah.
and yes. And I love the word nurturing and nourishment. And that gardening analogy is beautiful way to end this. Thank you so much, Nadine. Thank you
Mhm.
so much. I knew so when you and I met, even before I met you, I we met at at an event, a conference in Jamaica, which you live part of the time, right? Of the part of
I'm here.
you spend time there throughout the year, right?
Yes, I do. Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people. I don't really cross a room to meet someone unless I have a specific intention. And coming into that event, I knew you were going to be there, and you were actually the only person that I set the intention to make sure I introduced myself to you.
Mm.
I knew that there was something um, that our paths were like that there was a conversation that I wanted to have with you. I was very clear about that. I didn't know where it would go, what it meant, or any of that, but I knew that this work around this feminine energy, feminine medicine, all of that, I knew I wanted to talk to you. Um, which is
And I
why
didn't.
the first night when I got there and I spotted you sitting there minding your business at the table, I came over to introduce myself to you because I knew that we needed to have a conversation. And I'm so glad that I followed through with that um, because that led us to this moment where you shared this beautiful insight and enlightened all of us in many ways about another approach to how we connect with our bodies, our minds, and our spirits.
Yeah.
So thank
Well,
you.
thank you for
Mhm.
creating this sacred space, really, this beautiful space to have these conversations, Melanie. And I will say that when you approached me at that conference, and I felt the same right away, I could just feel our resonant,
Mm-hmm.
and I just felt your bright spirit. And then when I heard that you call your work, your podcast, She Chose Joy, I just like lit up because I could feel that in your energy and that I just love those three words together, choosing. And
Mm-hmm.
this is this is that whole revelation, right? And
Yeah.
revelation that we're talking about. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you. And so, what are you most grateful for in this moment?
Oh, I'm really grateful for that feeling of shared understanding.
Mm,
That when we find ways to talk about this, and even the word this, to me it's almost beyond words.
mm,
It's a whole field. It's a fertile field of something so beautiful. It's like going into a garden, like when two
mhm,
people, you go into a beautiful flower garden, you know it. You share that feeling of, oh, this is so
mhm,
beautiful. This is so good. That's what I
mhm,
love. That's what I
mhm.
love. This shared experience of, yes, this is goodness. This is goodness.
Yes,
We know this. We know this inside ourselves, and
yes,
we're honoring it and celebrating it. That's what I
mhm.
love.
Yes, yes. I can feel that. I feel that too. Is this this shared connection and this appreciation
Mm,
for this body that we've been given
mhm.
and being able to love on her a little differently, more
Ah,
intentionally, more, just even from like the yumminess of like I'm sitting here like touching myself, like caressing my arms and shoulders and things like that. But this is something I feel really in this moment right now. I can't really find the language for it. It's more of a feeling.
yeah.
And it's just grounded, connected, and just pure magic about all the wonder that's happening within this,
Yes.
this container of energy um and presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
Beautiful.
again, thank you for being here. To my listeners, I hope you took good notes. Come back to this episode, listen again, um, reach out to me. Let me know what your takeaways were. Let me know what you'd like to hear more about. Where would you like to take a deeper dive into this conversation about feminine medicine, right? Let me know what served you. And yeah, because we want to support you on this journey. Nadine and I are not here alone. We're two parts of this equation. And so please let me know what you'd like to hear more of about this. Because this was just this it was good. It was good. And so thank you all for tuning in. And remember that your freedom lies in your decision to say yes to what you want, yes to who you are, and yes to what you stand for. So, will you stand for becoming an active participant in engaging in your own healing process? Until next time, love and blessing.